All right.
Thank
December
you.
work.
Bob Armstrong, are you
Am
on
I,
deck?
yeah, I'm on. Let me hit F1. One of the things is I think I'm the only person who wakes up in the morning and when I turn on my computer, I immediately pull up a process that is based in Forth, it's built in Forth. Well, I just hit F1, which of course has helped. And these three, F6, F6 executes whatever's under the cursor, the line under the cursor. Shift F6 evaluates it in pure Forth and so forth. And any result is put in this window here. CF9, Shift F9 is like the one, if you will, special purpose key that I've ever done. And that just opens a URL in browser. But it's kind of interesting that F11 and F12 are all about putting in dates, and Shift S doesn't save, as does hitting an F11 timestamp. And one of the things is on here, go on down, and there are a bunch of URLs, of backup stuff. So let me come down here and hit F12, and then hit F11, which just saved the entire dictionary that all of this information saved, my notes and so forth. So yes, this is the state of the CoSy. Some draft alternative names, status report, which is, good. And this, but one of the things is name yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Well, it's actually going to be more of that than I expected. But for those of you who may be old enough to remember the movie, here's the use of Control F9. What did that? That's nuts. Control F9. There we go. There we go. Statue resting on a solid foundation. But unfortunately, the status of CoSy today is more like sort of the underpinnings are transparent, and that it's wet. It's still wet, and kind of somewhat skimpy on the clothes. But an aspect of CoSy, and it's interesting looking back at some of the history, it really is perhaps the very first stuff, and I don't know that you can, doesn't matter that you can see this, but this page, I'll by the way, yes, tomorrow I'll be going and making all this text and so forth available. But really, in a sense, the most fundamental aspects of CoSy started with this HDS terminal when I was connected to the Xerox mainframe via a 1200 baud modem. And it had like 4 pages, and I think this one had 8 pages of screen memory. And so I'd be working, but to go and actually send a line to or a bunch of stuff to the IP sharp APL mainframe, I'd have to hit a key. So that's sort of what's evolved in all of this. And well, get back. One of the things is, I mean, my computer is my crutch. I'm actually a pretty poor programmer. I'm bad at spelling. I'm bad at arithmetic, and I'm error prone, which is why I'm in software. and so I can do something arithmetic even. And I'm constantly, if you look at my regular notes, I just can't compute. But a whole motivation for coming from the APL world right from the very beginning, when I had the CoSys over the decades that have evolved, it was in APL, so I could actually do write down a line and actually have it do it. And one of the things that's unique about CoSy is that it's open in forth all the way down to, well, the chip. And that's the thing, is the environment itself is open and programmable, and an awful lot of the vocabulary is about that. And that allows you to continually be increasing your productivity, making it exponential. Now, the foundations of CoSy are, well, I've spent my life in Ken Iverson, and I would describe sort of the philosophy of APL, or the goal, because I see both APL and Forth as almost being a philosophy or a goal rather than a specific language. But Ken, coming from the world of essentially matrix algebra, it's like finite mathematics, APL is a succinct notation for the execution of finite mathematics. And I got into it because I was in a visual psychophysics lab, and I was trying to figure out how visual system works. And one of the things that APL, which allowed me to actually not just go and be reading the equations, the matrix operations, be able to compute it, and that got me kicked out of experimental psych grad school after a decade in grad school. But this is the thing; it convinced me that the ability to executably express the math succinctly trumps any specific area of math. So that's Ken's really, well, he got a Turing Award for it. Notation is a tool of thought. I put it in one of the terms, I think of it being wanting to be able to express combinatoric applications of functions, verbs. Ken ended up calling them verbs, I think it's good, to data, nouns. And so that, in a sense, is what the essence of I mean, it's the abstraction or whatever of what APL tries to do. Now Chuck, of course, has got the brilliant simplicity of making a minimal vocabulary capable of extending itself, is the way I like to sort of think of it as a goal. And one of the things is I can date when I learned of APL to when they had Tron at and some guys who were out in the Webster computing compound where all the mainframes were in Xerox. And we all decided to go see Tron, and the Byte magazine, I guess had come out. So I learned APL about I learned it mid 75, 76. So 8 years. But one of the things is, I'd say that since I learned APL, the only language that has really struck me as being equally independent. I mean, I of course was in Fortran and some Algol, and then PDP-8 actually is what sort of gave me a context to go and realize how significant Forth was. But one of the things is a friend from when I moved down to New York, friend Ryo Asaki, just to go and give a little piece of it, was really a courageous pioneer. This Ampere computer in 1985 was APL in ROM in 68,000 processor, and I've got one with half a meg of RAM. And he came to New York. He contacted me because he heard of my initial work on what was sort of on the HDS terminal, but in terms of human interface. And I suggested at the time, when he was going and looking at making this APL in ROM, I suggested he look at Forth as the alternate foundation. Anyway, enough of that yesterday. And one of the things, and this is just, to me, again, one of those things that make it unique. Forth is unique in recognizing that language is a hierarchy of definitions, not a horizon. And virtually all other languages, and APL is sort of the ultimate of this. You've got a language which is sort of built in, and this is your vocabulary, and you can't see underneath and how the things are made, and really extending it is going and moving into away from the primitives or whatever. And in Forth, fundamentally, the primitives are whatever the code is that you're it's what you're making that minimal vocabulary in. And I claim that CoSy is the only very high level, APL level language, which honors this and is open all the way to the underlying hardware language. And one of the things that I also think is sort of me too is that both Ken and Chuck, I put it, required an interactive environment. I mean, this was the thing that caught me in APL. I could sit down at an interactive terminal, first pinwheel deck writer, and then relatively thereafter terminals, and write down a line in the APL workspace and actually define a word, and that would get saved. And the fact that even in something as minimal as a minimal Forth, getting an interactive screen, I not only require that, I require a backspace key to make any forward progress. But one of the things, and this is something, program at the most time and thought efficient level. And this is sort of like for so much. I mean, one of the great things about being involved in a group like this is I'm definitely working at my Peter Principle level of incompetence. I mean, it just is I see so much that is outside what will ever be my Ken, but definitely the bridging these worlds is what I can again, whatever your domain, if you can think it, it's done. Canadian friend of that. Anyway, getting into some specifics, vocabulary. For me, the code is the theory. I mean, I first touched a computer in '63, and there were no computer science departments back then to go and talk about anything. But I think a good example, and this starts touching on notions of lambda expressions and so forth. I'll just give a simple program that, well, it's centered fourth day, and one of the things is, so I hit F6 to do that. Then the use of F5 is anything that I have in the result I can input into my notes. And here this goes and looks through all the scripts that are built in and finds, and this is in the furniture script, but center, which I just recently defined, this is what it looks like in CoSy. And some of it is one of the things. Let me go and make a additional window here. Whoop. Oh, by the way, in that period, it just went, and I mean, because something went. This is one of those things that is got to get rid of this interface and move to a sockets-based regular interface. But where were we here? Well, I was going to execute this, reading this is the whole script that's a definition in. But one of the things about that, if I go through the definition, this essentially is a word that makes a stack frame, where essentially it's actually rather quite simple parameter pushing. Let me go and put that, take out a comment symbol and F6 that. Here's the entire vocabulary of stack frames. And one of the things is that it really is implementing this notion from a guy named George Lanz, I don't know, and that's the thing. But essentially, it's just putting a fixed point on the stack, and then you have referencing relative to it. So you have a frame, and so getting back to the definition here, this takes the top two items on the stack and then puts a stack frame on that. So you can point, rather than being relatively addressed, well, in fact, it creates, the vocabulary creates this right one, which takes the closest one, but you see, and the left, and the equivalents. So you have these two become the parameters inside the definition. And actually, this was, I think, suggested by somebody on minimal computing. I really like that swap. And this is count, how many items there are, I swapped it anyway. I won't go through this, but except to go, and this is something that's absolutely unique, is this word onto takes the function that is given to it and applies it to the top two arguments on the stack. Go on, and this returned those, so those are copies of those are on the stack. I'll pretty much skip catenation. It's going, and essentially it's taking, it's dividing by two and sticking that many blanks on the front. And then two capital P returns, goes and pops that stack, and whatever's on the stack here, pops that stack frame, and whatever's on the stack there, which is this catenated list, it returns. And so that's that's what's going on there. Okay. And the vocabulary of CoSy provides the essentials of higher level languages. One of the things in APL, everything is a list, which is sort of a generalization from APL's or Iverson's essentially rectangular arrays. And it's actually a simplification that Arthur Whitney did, that everything's just lists of lists. And CoSy object has a 3-cell header. And this, by the way, is a structure which simply will go and turn, returns each of the non-blank strings as a string. And actually, this can become a reasonable thing. The first item is well, yeah, I think I've got this probably. Yeah. The type of that list that just got handed it is 0, which means it's a list of pointers essentially. And this is something that actually, following Arthur Whitney's structure, and I mean, even I asked him about this. He never moves anything in memory, and he made that comment at, I think it was the Union Bank of Switzerland, which pretty much funded his writing of K, which is the foundation of KX, and went to this list structure. But so this is I've looked at this recently as sort of a generalization of a counted string, where instead of just having a count, the first thing is the type of the thing, string. We got just strings and floats and so forth. So in essentially that tells you sort of what vocabulary to look at to go and execute on an item. And then count is how many of them you got to do. And then ref count, this handles the memory management. In the sense, words handle their own memory management. And when ref count, whenever anything references a value, because one of the things is everything is on this single dictionary. Top level dictionary is a list of 2 lists of keys and values. And the values, of course, can be lists themselves. But in any case, with reference counted memory management, and you can look into vocabulary, and actually Sam Falvo gave an excellent talk, which I put a link, or I guess, up at the notes that I took on his talk, essentially when you decrement a reference count and it returns to 0, then it goes and recursively deletes all the nodes that are attached to it. And one of the things that, again, following Arthur, he never moves anything. And that struck me so much. I asked him if we were waiting for the elevator to go down, out. He never moves anything. No, what he has is an inventory of 2 to the nth slots. And so what he does in allocating an item is just go and find an empty slot bigger than whatever the I'd say address space is, because that's where you're allotting at any point in time. And when and one of the things is that's one piece that I just go out to the windows, allot and allocate and free. But
Bob, sorry to interrupt. Bob, how much more do you have? How much more do you have?
It's actually that's the end.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Bob?
That's pretty interesting.
Okay, let me ask one. Bob, if I really wanted to get started with CoSy, if I wanted to figure out what it was, what would be the first step to download it or get it or find instructions?
Well, one of the things is I'm going to be uploading a copy of the current state of everything, including these notes. Well, let me finish and then say that, because let's see, where am I? Reference counter, got lists of lists,
Okay.
arrays.
You need to wrap it up like in the next minute, please.
Yeah, okay. And I think the lambda expressions I was saying are like stack frames. What needs to be done is the to-do list is really polish it for ordinary human beings, and that's one of the things. Is right now you have to specify particularly the arithmetic things need to be genericized, and the thing is that's something known how to do. Factor does it, but in any case, and then part of related to that is making that you have entire numeric lists just automatically done and turned into the proper type. And this is one of the things that I think is patently obvious, is that to turn this IUP, replace this IUP with essentially a browser with all its beautiful fonts and all of that, but still fundamentally with F6 or a mouse click going and executing the line. Then also the further thing is to transliterate CoSy from this development in Riva to a clean forth. And one of the important things is to have, I'll just call them recursive quotations. Because quotations is a fancy way of approximating what forth has. Forth needs to be cleaned up. But if you want to go and really get involved on a serious level of turning this into a significant, what it can be, go to this alphas page, which talks about licensed, supported the things, and so can get a membership. And one of the things is you get 0.1% of CoSy, which is one of the reasons why I spend all my time doing enhancing, getting the accounting structure in order and all my accounting functions in order, which I talked about 2 talks ago. And then how the hell do you learn something like this? Well, expect to put in that amount of time in pushing your head against it, because but I'll tell you, it is far simpler than traditional APL. Go and look at Dialogue's recent things, and the tick in forth, which allows you to hand the address of the next word, whether it's a verb or a noun or whatever, to hand that as a noun to whatever verb comes after it, essentially replaces all of the complexity of what APL calls operators and all that. Okay, and
Thank you so much, Bob, and we really appreciate it. But I think we've got to move on now, because I have this feeble-minded idea that at least on 4th day we're going to try to stick to a schedule. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be among such an interesting crowd.
All right. Without further ado, but without, I think, a fireplace this year, the annual fireside chat.